What is up guys, it's SX Modern Warfare here, Gamertab Banjo Chicken, and welcome back to another episode of Hardware Tutorials. So in this episode we are going to be doing, finally, we're going to be attempting to RGH an Xbox. This is something loads of you guys have been requesting and I've never done it before myself, so this is kind of all new to me as well. If we succeed with this, then I will call this a tutorial. And I'll lay this out as a tutorial, but I could easily fail miserably, so it's anyone's guess at the moment. But yeah, so basically the idea behind this video is to RGH an Xbox. Now I know there's lots of other YouTubers who focus solely on doing this and are far more experienced than I am. I am completely new to this, but the idea behind this video that's going to be a bit different hopefully from other people's. Again, it's all new to me, but what we're going to be doing is RGHing an Xbox with two different factors. Number one is we're using a method that is quite unheard of, it's quite new, which is the RGH1.2 hack. There's the RGH2 hack, the RGH1 hack that everyone's heard of, but there's a kind of new method that kind of brings the RGH1 hack back, which is RGH1.2. Which takes the advantages of RGH1 and RGH2. So you've got the advantage of it working on any dash like RGH2, and you've got the advantage of the faster boot times of RGH1, and it also works on most of the Xbox motherboards. I believe Xenon's always a bit of a dodgy one, but Zypher's, Falcon's, Opus, Jasper works fine. I don't know about Slims because they're completely different motherboards, but in this video we're going to be doing a Jasper. We're going to be RGH 1.2 hacking the Jasper Xbox 360 console, a Phat Xbox console. And the other thing about this video, we're going to be doing this as cheaply as possible. So we're using a Rev C clone. This is a Coolrunner Rev C clone, and we're also going to be using a JR programmer for reading and writing the NAND. That's basically it. We're not using any QSBs, we're doing a direct wire install, so that'll save you on cost. And this Coolrunner Rev C clone is kind of like the cheapest glitch chip you can really get a hold of, I think. Pretty cheap. And the JR Programmer V2 is a cheaper alternative to the Nand-X. It does the same thing a Nand-X does, but just a bit slower at reading and writing the NAND, but it's about half the price. So I'll try and find links for US and UK in the description, and any software that will be covered in this video will also be linked in the description below. So let's begin. And I have the console powered up right now just to show you that it is a retail console. Let me zoom out. So just to show you that it is a retail console, you can see demos that says corrupted game demo. Which means that is XEX menu I've got on the console. If it's a retail console, which it is, it shows up as corrupted. The whole thing, once we have done this RGH 1.2 hack, if it is successful, that's a big if it's successful, then that should change to not corrupted anymore, and it should be XEX menu, and we should be able to run it by the end of the video. So let's get to it. Let's do this. Okay, so you can see I've got the console here opened up in front of me. What you're going to want to do is obviously open it up, so I have a hardware tutorials on that. Episode 1 shows you how to open a Phat console. You're going to just have to follow that guide and then just take out every single screw from the bottom and you'll be able to lift it out. You have to take the fan out, the DVD tray out, all of that stuff, and you'll be able to open it up. Now, in order to find out what Xbox motherboard you have, I'll put a little image on screen. You just have to look at the power brick, use that image as a guide, and you know, if it has an HDMI or doesn't have an HDMI, and how the power brick looks, whether it has that little bit in the middle or not, or the two little bits at the top instead of just one line, then you'll be able to tell what kind of motherboard you actually have on your console. So determine what motherboard you have. I have a Jasper, it's what we're doing. You can follow this guide if you're doing a Falcon, or probably a Zypher as well, or an Opus should be okay. Again, Xenons are dodgy. I wouldn't recommend doing a Xenon because the RGH hack's not really meant for Xenons and it doesn't work well. And not for, obviously you can't follow this guide for Slims as well. So to take the motherboard out, once you have all the screws out, my method is just pull up on the two memory card slots and you'll be able to take it completely out. So I've got the motherboard out. Just put the tray over somewhere else. So to put the motherboard down, you can put it back down on a flat wooden desk. An anti-static workstation is more appropriate. Or what I'm going to do is put it on top of a motherboard box, a computer motherboard box, because computer motherboard boxes are anti-static workstations as well. They can be used as anti-static workstations. So I'm going to pop that back down on there, and that's what we're going to use. But like I say, if you don't have an anti-static workstation or a motherboard box, then just make sure there's no metal bits of solder on your desk. As long as it's like a flat wooden desk, you should be okay. Just don't power on the console while it's sitting on the desk. So yeah, anyway, so a motherboard box is appropriate for this. So first thing we're going to do is we need to read the NAND from the console. To do that, we're going to be using our JR Programmer V2. We're going to connect a USB cable to this. We're going to have to solder our direct wires onto the motherboard. So we're going to be using the direct wire install. So you need one of these cables that has the direct wires on the other end, which we can use to solder to the motherboard. Now, if you have the QSBs and you want to install this using the direct wire installs as per this guide, then the QSB ones have this exact same cable. They're just attached to little plugs at the end. If you cut off the little plugs at the end and then strip down the wires, then you have your direct wire install cable ready. So you can do that as well if you don't have these. So anyway, let's go ahead. I'll reposition the camera, zoom in on the points that we're going to need to solder. I'll put a little link, a little image on screen right now from, this image was from JRunner. You'll find it on JRunner as well in the images section, and it shows you the points and the right coloured wires that you need to solder to what points to read the NAND from the console. So I'll zoom in on those points and we'll start soldering this and hopefully get the NAND read. Okay guys, so here we go. Now I've zoomed in on the points that we need to do. First of all, we've got these. So basically we have to prepare 5 points on here. We've got that one, that one, that one, that one, and this one up here for the wires, and then there's 2 more points on a different part of the board that we need to solder. So to begin with, I'm just going to prepare those points, put a little bit of solder on them. So what you're going to want to do now is just prep the points with some flux and then go ahead and apply solder to each one of the points, enough so that you can attach the wires, and then we're just going to solder on the wires. Alright guys, so once we have that all soldered up as we have here, we're going to move on, and we need to do 2 points on this little pad right here. We've got 2 more points that we have to do, so I'll go over and do those, and then we'll be able to read the NAND. Alright, so now we're moving on to this point here. This is J2B1. So there's only 2 wires for the Nand-X or JR Programmer that we need, and that is this point here, which is green, and this point down here, which is 7. I mean, you can just go back to the, if you're following along with this, just go back onto the image that I displayed up on screen, and you'll know exactly which wire goes where. So let's do the blue one first. Alright guys, so that is it. We have all of our JR Programmer / Nand-X wires soldered onto the board. So now the actual plug here plugs into our JR Programmer, and then everything else, the JR Programmer then connects to the computer and we can read the NAND that way. So I'll get that hooked up. Okay then guys, so once you have done that, what we're going to do is we need to hook up our JR Programmer to those wires that we soldered to the motherboard. We need to attach the power cable, so we need to apply power to the motherboard. So plug in your power cable, do not turn the console on. I mean, you shouldn't even have the RF board attached to turn it on anyway, but just plug it in, and when you do that you should see it's flashing down here. So what we need to do is plug in the USB cable from the computer into that slot and it should go solid green. So now I have the power cable connected, the wires connected, and the light is solid green as that is attached to my computer. Alright, so that's what you have to do. Connect it up like that, and now we can go over to the computer and I can show you how to read the NAND. Okay guys, so now we're over to the computer. What I'm going to do is first I need the drivers for the JR Programmer. I got it off Team Executor. I'll probably link that in the description as well for you guys. So you get the drivers, basically drag them into a folder, and to install them we go into Device Manager, which you can access by right clicking on Computer, going to Manage, and then System Tools, Device Manager. And what we do from there, we find JR Programmer, right click, update driver software, browse for driver software, browse, and it's on my desktop and I called it JR Driver. Next, install this driver anyway, and done. Okay, so now the JR Programmer is installed. It should show up now on JRunner, and this program will also be in the description. And what we're going to do now is basically try and read the NAND. So what you're going to have to do, as I showed before, is those wires that you soldered to the motherboard, the other end of that, the plug, plugs into the JR Programmer. Then you have a USB cable that plugs into the JR Programmer and the other end into the computer. And you need the power cable also connected to the console. Very important, the console must not be turned on, but the power cable must be plugged in. There must be power going to the motherboard, but the console must not be turned on. Okay, so now what we're going to do is try and read the NAND, and this is always the worrying part, so here we go, I guess. Read NAND, and alright guys, I was getting a bit confused as to why I clicked read NAND and it didn't tell me what NAND I actually had. What you want to do is just click this question mark button and that will grab the type of motherboard from the console. It will query the NAND to find out what type of motherboard it is, and it will enter it in here. And then when it does that and you want to go and read NAND, it should automatically select the correct motherboard. If it doesn't, you just select whichever motherboard you have. Programmer, read NAND. Okay, and it's now reading the NAND from the console. Thank God it's actually a Jasper 16 megabyte NAND. I was really worried it was going to be a 256 or a 512 meg. It doesn't really matter if it is a 512 meg, like at all. It doesn't actually matter. It just means it's going to take longer to read the NAND. So we're going to take two NAND reads and compare them. You can take between 2 or 4. I thought it could have been like a large block NAND, which is why, which is kind of why I only took 2 reads. Bad block 250. Okay guys, as you can see, it finished reading the first NAND. Now it's doing the second. It's very important you take at least 2 NAND reads so that you can compare them and make sure they're the same. Because as you can see, if you look here, you can see that I had a bad block. Error reading 250, reading block 1AA. If I get that exact same message on the second read, then I know that it's fine. It's just the NAND chip itself that's causing that, and that's not a problem. But if I don't get any bad blocks on the second read, or I get a different bad block on the second read, then it means that either I need to resolder one of the points or all of the points in case one of them is a bit dodgy or not soldered correctly. So yeah, you can't have two NANDs that are different. You need them both to be the same. So if this NAND read does not if this NAND read has error 250 reading block 1AA, like the first one did, then that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem with my soldering. It's just on the NAND chip itself, and it's just one bad block, which is not an issue. It can be corrected when you're building the NAND in XE build. We'll sort that. Yep, there we go. It's the exact same 1AA. So that means it's not my soldering. That bad block is just within the NAND itself, or within the NAND chip itself, and it's just one bad block, so that's fine. If you get multiple bad block errors, it's your soldering most likely. You'll have to go and resolder. If you get a different bad block to the first one, or like your first NAND read has some bad blocks and the second NAND read doesn't have any, then it's your soldering, and you just have to try and clean up your soldering and keep trying until you get two successful NAND reads that either have no bad blocks, or if they just have one bad block, it needs to be the same block on both NANDs, otherwise there is an issue. Alright, and as you can see, it finished, and when it finishes both NANDs, you should get that NANDs are the same. It will say comparing, and normally if you don't have any bad blocks, it will just say comparing, and then it will say NANDs are the same. For me, it found that there was two bad blocks, but the bad blocks were the same, so the NANDs are the same, and it's remapped those bad blocks, which block remapping, essentially it's just taking the bad block and it's putting it in a reserved space of the NAND where it's not going to cause any damage or any funny stuff, so that's fine. It looks like we've got successful NAND reads, and it basically saves them into your JRunner folder. So now what we're going to have to do is two things. We're going to have to create a Xel reloaded image and write that to the NAND, but before we do that, we're going to get the Coolrunner prepped and ready so that we're going to be able to solder that to the board in order to glitch it, because we need to glitch the console in order to boot into Xel. And the purpose of creating a Xel reloaded image and getting onto Xel is to get the CPU key. That's what we're after from Xel, so we're going to have to get our Coolrunner ready now. So this seems like a good point to end part 1. Part 2 will be linked in the description and on screen right now, so you can just continue straight with the tutorial. I'll make sure I upload it on the same day as part 1 so that there's no waiting for you guys. But this video would not be possible if it weren't for Monoxide. He helped me out a ton. I was emailing him back and forth for advice for this video and help. So yeah, he is basically a retail / RGH seller. He has a Facebook shop for selling ResetGlitch hacked and Jtag consoles. So if you're looking at this video and you find it too difficult or too complicated, then you could just go ahead and buy a console that's already ResetGlitch hacked from him, and he'll do a hell of a lot better job at it than I am. So go ahead and check that out if you're looking for a ResetGlitch hack console in the UK. Also, he has a retail shop on the techgame.com, which you can go ahead and check out if you want to buy a retail console to ResetGlitch hack yourself, for example, rather than going on eBay and just buying a console you don't know what motherboard it will have. It could have a Xenon or something awful. You can go ahead and buy a specific motherboard from him. So you can buy a retail console and you can ask for a specific motherboard like a Jasper, and he will give you a Jasper so you know what you will be getting. So definitely worthwhile checking out if you live in the UK. And yeah, just really great guy, helped me out a lot. So go ahead, show him some support. Go ahead and like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, comment if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys in part 2.
Yeah.